Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel, and today we are going to talk about adding MCP servers to your Claude Code. I'm going to keep it super simple to just quickly add an MCP server, use it, and see how you can manage them. The first thing you need to do is actually choose an MCP server. So when I say choose an MCP server, you need to find them. So if you go to the documentation, they have pretty much a ton of different options available, which are, they say that, popular MCP servers. I'm going to use something super simple which they recently released and is also super cool. It's called Excalidraw. So if you guys don't know about it, it's a diagramming tool. Very simply, all of this and everything else is actually created on Excalidraw, and it's a super cool tool to build great diagrams, and you always can use it to learn something, to explain something, literally anything that you can think of. So they have a server link here, which is pretty simple, this particular URL. So if you see here, this is all we need to do and copy from here to add into our Claude code. So I'm going to copy this, come back to our terminal here, and I'm just going to simply say come here, Claude MCP transport HTTP. I know the command is like again pretty long, but very simply after this you need to define the name of the server. So I'm going to say Excalidraw, and after that paste the URL, and that's it. Once you've done this, you can just press enter and it will already add that. And as you can see, it already exists in my local configuration, so I don't need to like do anything. As you can see, I have two of my MCPs connected, one of them Excalidraw and then other Claude AI with Excali. And as you can see, as soon as I add Claude MCP list, I have my Excalidraw server actually connected here properly. Now, the next step is pretty much simply using Claude to build something with this. I'm going to do something fun here. I'm going to say use Excalidraw to create an explanation of how macroeconomics work. Okay, I don't know how this is going to come out. Macroeconomics work. That's it. I've given it a complete ask. The server exists. It does know that the server exists, and let's see what it comes out to be. We can see it has already started again building it, and it's going to now create the diagram also. And this is just super cool that it can do it within Claude Code and utilize all the functionality that Claude Code offers to actually build that. Until this is actually happening, let me give you a quick overview on how does the MCP section work. So the way it works is very simply, MCP servers can connect to anything across the world. So you can have access to your file system, your database, your Gmail, even your GitHub. If you have an MCP server that from GitHub and you connect it to your Claude code, it will have access to that. And the simple way it works is that whatever Claude requests, it uses the MCP server to trigger all the other information. So if you ask it to add something into GitHub or edit a commit or do something, anything that you want, it can do that if it has access to the MCP server and the particular information with that. The next thing, just to give you a quick example of how it happens step by step. Very simply, we asked Claude here to create Excalidraw. It figured out, okay, first it needs to understand what I'm asking, and after that, it needs to write the option into Excalidraw. So it needs to create a file, and then it picks the right tool, which is in case writing into a file. MCP tool automatically formats it on how it needs. So for example, it needs to send out an information in a JSON format or something else, and it does that, and then finally comes back with the result. MCP takes care of a lot of the overhead. Given the reason that I don't need to think about what is the format, what is the logic, and I can just use a single URL to connect to all of this, is just crazy. So we come back to Claude Code and see what we have got. So if you see here, it sent all of this information, right? Again, very clearly created all of this information and just delivered everything and gave me a final link here. I can open this link. Let's copy this and let's open this link and actually see what it actually created. And I hope it's pretty good. So I think we're still missing something. So you can see the private sector, public sector options are there. It was trying to create text, but it does not have that. So we can go back into Claude Code and tell it to do that. So I can say very simply, the connector, the only thing I want to hope is hopefully it's not a color thing, and I'm just going to select the stroke, and yep, there is no font, there is no text within these boxes, and that's pretty interesting. Okay, so it did make a mistake, but that's completely fine. I'm just going to go ahead and say there is no text mentioned within the boxes, only the notes are there. So I've given it that, and now technically again I believe it will utilize the same MCP server to edit that particular diagram, and that's crazy. I can just use it as like a simple tool that I've inbuilt into my computer. I don't need to think about anything else, and that's the crazy part. So you can see here the label property on shapes does not export properly, and it needs to fix that. So it might be able to not, but you still know how to add an MCP server. So let's see. Now until that is happening, I want to tell you about one specific thing. So the way we install the MCP, Right now we installed it for completely. I want to use Excalidraw across all my projects. So that's why it just got installed in the way I said, like, MCP add, and it's simply like, adding it to my whole directory. So every time I'm using Claude, I will have access to this, no matter which project it is. But let's say you want some MCPs just specific to project. For example, specifically you want something like GitHub credentials for a separate project are different, so you want to connect it to a separate server. In that way, that time you will use this command, but also add the word scope and mention project, so that it only gets installed for your particular project. And that is important because that means it will only be available for your particular project and nothing else. And that is important if you want to make your MCP servers different. So you have some MCP servers on for everyone and some MCP servers specific to the project, and it makes sense to do that. Now once you've done all of this, you're pretty much good to go, and that's all it takes to add an MCP server to Claude Code and actually use it. But as you can see, we have got the final link, so let's test it out. And voila, we actually got the content right here. Again, it's not perfect in any sense, like again, it's like still work in progress. And given that this particular MCP server was released 1 week back, this is still great. You can see how it actually explains a pretty difficult concept in the most simplest way possible and does not do a bad job at it. So again, that's the power of MCP. We created a complete diagram which would have taken probably like another 30 minutes for me to create first, given that I know everything about macroeconomics or not, and then put this together. So again, the power of MCP servers lies in bringing out the right tools and connecting them into Claude Code. You should definitely try more of them out and see how they add value to your project. The one thing that I would always suggest is that just think about the format that if you are using any other tool with your code base, with anything that you're doing in Claude Code, probably you should just use an MCP server to do that. So it could be assigning project tasks, it could be assigning creating images, it could be about posting something, it could be anything. You should just use an MCP server most of the times. Perfect. With that, we conclude how to use an MCP server. I know this was a super quick tutorial, but that's all you need to actually connect something, use it, and get started with it. But if you're someone who actually wants to learn more about Claude Code, I have a complete series that is running, and you can go ahead and watch it here. And I hope if you're here till now, you really like the video. Please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps you out a lot, and I would love to see you in the next one.